We were already dead. We just didn't know it yet. 25 men, surrounded by 200 enemy soldiers, deep inside a jungle that swallowed sound, light, and hope all at once. There was no radio contact, no backup coming, no air support, just us and them, closing in from every direction. The air felt heavy, like it didn't want us to breathe anymore. You could hear it, not gunfire, not shouting, but something worse. Silence. The kind of silence that tells you something is about to go terribly wrong. Leaves barely moved. Even the birds had disappeared. And then a branch snapped. That was the moment everything began to fall apart, because within seconds, the jungle came alive. If this story grips you, hit like, subscribe, and stay till the end. My name is James Walker. I'm 96 years old now, and I've lived a long life since that day. But nothing I've experienced ever came close to what happened on October 14th, 1944. Back then, I wasn't a hero. I wasn't some highly trained soldier like you see in the movies. I was just a young man, barely out of my teens, thrown into a war that didn't care whether I was ready or not. We had been moving for hours through dense jungle terrain, exhausted, low on supplies, and completely unaware that we were walking straight into a trap. And the worst part, by the time we realized it, it was already too late. Our point man raised his fist. We froze instantly. That's when we saw it. Movement in the trees. Not one, not two, dozens. Shadows shifting between branches, figures crouched low, rifles aimed. They had been watching us for a long time, waiting, patient, calculated. And now, they had us exactly where they wanted. The first shots didn't come from us. They came from everywhere else. Gunfire erupted like thunder cracking through the jungle. The sound was deafening, echoing through the trees, disorienting, overwhelming. One of our men dropped instantly. He didn't even get a chance to react. We hit the ground, shouting, returning fire, trying to find direction in chaos that had no direction. But the truth hit hard and fast. We were surrounded. I remember looking at the man next to me. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely reload his weapon. His face was pale, eyes wide, like he was already seeing the end. And honestly, so was I. Fear doesn't feel like what you expect. It's not loud. It doesn't scream. It's quiet, cold. It creeps into your chest and makes every breath feel like it might be your last. That's when I looked down at my weapon, my old hunting rifle. It wasn't built for this. No rapid fire, no advantage. Just a simple bolt-action rifle, something I had used back home for hunting. And in that moment, it felt completely out of place. But it was all I had, so I made a choice. If I was going to die, I wasn't going to make it easy for them. I took my first shot, one clean breath, one steady aim, one pull of the trigger. The sound cracked through the chaos, and somewhere ahead of me, a figure dropped. I didn't celebrate, didn't think. I just moved, reload, shift position, aim again, fire. Time stopped making sense after that. Everything slowed down, but at the same time, it felt like it was moving too fast to control. I wasn't fighting like a soldier anymore. I was fighting like a hunter, watching movement, predicting patterns, waiting for the right moment. And every time I pulled that trigger, I made sure it mattered. But around me, things were getting worse. One by one, our numbers were dropping. Our squad leader, gone. The radio operator, gone. Men I had laughed with just hours ago, silent, still, gone. There's a moment in battle when you stop thinking about winning and you start thinking about surviving. And then there's a moment after that when you realize survival might not be possible either. The enemy started changing tactics. They slowed down, spread out. They stopped rushing because something was confusing them. Something was stopping their advance. They didn't know what it was, but I did. I wasn't letting them move forward, not without a cost. 3 hours. That's how long it lasted. 3 hours of constant pressure. 3 hours of fighting men who outnumbered us nearly 10 to 1. 3 hours of refusing to give up, even when every part of me wanted to. My hands were bruised, my shoulders burned with every shot, my vision blurred from sweat and exhaustion. But I kept going, because stopping was not an option. The silence didn't mean safety. That was the first mistake I almost made. After hours of gunfire, after the screams faded, after the jungle swallowed everything again, it felt like it was over. But war doesn't end like that. It tricks you. I stayed still, my back pressed against that rough tree bark, my rifle resting across my lap. My fingers were still wrapped around it so tightly they had gone numb. I didn't dare loosen my grip, because something didn't feel right. Not yet. The jungle was quiet, but not empty. There's a difference, a big one. I could hear it if I focused hard enough. Distant movement. Careful, slow, not retreating, repositioning. They weren't gone. They were waiting. My heart started pounding again, harder than before. Not the wild panic from earlier. This was different. This was controlled fear, the kind that keeps you alive. I slowly lifted my head, just enough to scan the area. What I saw made my stomach drop. Bodies, everywhere. Some in uniform I recognized, some I didn't. The ground was torn apart, leaves scattered, dirt soaked. The jungle that once felt alive now looked broken, and for a moment, I couldn't move, because reality hit me all at once. We didn't win. We survived. There's a difference. "Walker," a weak voice called out. I turned quickly, raising my rifle out of instinct, until I saw him. It was Carter, one of the youngest in our unit. He was lying a few feet away, clutching his side, his breathing uneven, eyes barely open. I rushed to him. "Stay with me," I whispered, dropping beside him. But even as I said it, I knew. War teaches you things you never wanted to learn, like how to recognize when someone isn't going to make it. His grip tightened on my sleeve. You kept firing," he muttered weakly. I didn't answer. I couldn't, because I didn't know what to say. That I was just trying to stay alive? That I didn't even know if it made a difference? He gave a faint smile. "Good," he said, and then his hand went still. I stayed there for a few seconds, maybe longer. I don't know. Time didn't exist anymore. But I couldn't stay, because that feeling came back, that same feeling from before. We were still being watched. I grabbed my rifle again, forcing myself to move. Every step felt heavier than the last. Every shadow looked like a threat. And then I saw it. A figure, not far ahead, half hidden behind a tree, not moving. I froze. My finger rested on the trigger, my breathing slowed. Seconds passed, maybe longer. Then the figure shifted slightly, just enough. Enemy. I fired. The shot echoed through the jungle again, breaking whatever illusion of peace had been there. And just like that, the nightmare started all over again. Gunfire returned, but this time it was different. It wasn't overwhelming like before. It was scattered, controlled, like they were testing me. They knew now. They knew someone was still fighting, and they were trying to find me. I moved quickly, changing position, staying low, using every bit of cover I could find. But this wasn't like before. Before, we were a unit. Now, it was just me. One man, one rifle, almost no ammunition left. I checked my pockets quickly. A few rounds, not enough for another long fight. Which meant one thing: every shot now had to count even more than before. I slowed everything down again. Controlled breathing, steady hands, focused mind. This wasn't about holding ground anymore. This was about escape. But escaping wasn't easy. Not when you're deep in enemy territory. Not when they know you're still alive. Not when they're hunting you. Because that's what this had become. A hunt. And for the first time that day, I wasn't the hunter anymore. I was the target. I moved through the jungle carefully, every step planned, every sound measured. Twigs snapping under your feet. Death. Breathing too loud. Death. Moving too fast. Death. Everything mattered. I could hear them now. Closer. Whispers. Footsteps. branches shifting. They were closing in again. But this time, it was personal. They weren't just attacking, they were tracking. I dropped low behind a fallen log, my heart beating so hard it felt like it would give me away. I raised my rifle slowly and waited. One of them stepped into view, careful, alert, scanning. I lined up the shot, but I didn't fire. Not yet, because behind him, there were more. And suddenly, I realized something. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was the final test, because if I made one wrong move now, there wouldn't be 3 more hours. There wouldn't be another chance. There would only be silence, and this time, it wouldn't end. And then, it stopped. Not suddenly, not completely, but slowly. The gunfire faded, the movement disappeared, the jungle went quiet again. I stayed there for a long time, not moving, not speaking, just listening, waiting, making sure it was real. When I finally stood up, there were only a few of us left. The rest never made it out. People talk about bravery, about heroism, about war stories like they're something exciting, but they don't tell you this part. The silence after, the memories that don't leave, the faces you never forget. I'm 96 years old now, and I still hear it sometimes. That jungle, those shots, that silence, and that old hunting rifle. It didn't make me a hero, it just gave me 3 more hours to live. If this story held you till the very end, if you felt even a fraction of that fear, that pressure, that fight to survive, then don't just scroll away. Take a second, because stories like this aren't just about war. They're about moments that define what a human being does when everything is taken away, when there's no backup, no second chances, and no way out except forward. So if you respect that kind of courage, if you believe that these stories should never be forgotten, then make sure you hit that like button. It might seem small, but it helps this story reach more people who need to hear it. And if you're new here, don't miss what comes next, because this isn't just one story, it's part of a much bigger journey, a journey filled with survival, impossible odds, and moments that history almost erased. So go ahead and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you're the first to see part 3, the final chapter of what happened in that jungle, and whether I made it out alive. And one more thing. Share this video with someone who appreciates real stories, someone who understands that behind every survivor there's a story that was never meant to be told, because the truth is, not everyone made it out, but their story still can. And as long as we keep telling it, they're never truly gone.